Today we have Lenka Zdeborova, who is a professor of statistical physics and computational laboratory, in the École Polytechnique Fédérale of Lausanne. And so, Professor Zdeborova, I would like to start this interview asking you to present yourself, your interest, your career.
So yeah, indeed, I lead a laboratory which name is Statistical Physics of Computation here at EPFL since 5 years. Uh, the laboratory is part of both physics and the computer science school here. Before that, I was for 10 years in France as a researcher at CNRS, and before that, I was doing a postdoc in the Los Alamos National Laboratory and PhD in France, in Orsay, in University of Paris South. Yeah.
Now, so speaking about statistical physics, computation, what is the common background of all these apparently different disciplines?
Yeah, so common background of the disciplines. I mean, I will put it this way. Here at EPFL, for instance, I teach about data science and machine learning to essentially all the students across the engineering, physics, basic sciences disciplines. And to me today, these are the kind of common background to essentially all the quantitative scientific disciplines in similar way as we think of, say, calculus or linear algebra as a common background to every quantitative science. So it's really this, how to deal with data, how to deal with the uncertainty, how to learn from data, how to extract knowledge and rules and predict the behavior of the systems based on the data. That kind of connects not only computer science and physics, but really all the disciplines.
And so, speaking about statistical mechanics, which is the theme of next conference, what do you think are the future directions of this broad field, and especially what are you interested in?
Yeah. So when thinking about future directions, I find it useful to kind of remind what is this field about at its core. And to me, at least, the core of this field of statistical physics really is about the fact that when we have many elements that interact, and traditionally these were molecules and atoms, and they interact in some random way, in some probabilistic way. But if there are many of them, then their behavior can be described deterministically. That the randomness is kind of averaged out and they have deterministic behavior. In the context of data science, this kind of property later on started to be called the blessing of dimensionality, where the dimensionality would be the number of these interacting elements, and when there are many, there is this blessing that their behavior becomes deterministic. And now, I mean, this is the core idea of statistical physics, on which statistical physics was built 100 years ago, based on our need to understand the steam engine, essentially, after the Industrial Revolution. But then later on, this realization that probabilistically behaving systems of interacting elements are interesting and important in many disciplines, in mathematics, neuroscience, chemistry, signal processing, machine learning, artificial intelligence today. So this core idea kind of percolated to all the other disciplines. So to me, how I see the future of statistical mechanics is to embrace kind of this core concept of the blessing of dimensionality and work with the other disciplines to kind of unleash the power of this concept to answer the questions of science across disciplines today.
Okay, thank you. And so, coming finally to this StatPhys conference in Florence, what are you planning to present here in Florence?
Right. So indeed, I will be giving one of the plenary talks. I believe is the one that will open the first day of the conference on Monday. And I plan to talk about how statistical physics is used to understand artificial intelligence today. So, it cannot come as unnoticed to anyone who is potentially listening to this that, we have things like ChatGPT that are just working impressively. Like very few of us imagined 4 years ago that we will have something like that this soon. And the the underlying design principles of these systems today are not really well understood. One of them, for instance, is the whole AI industry is relying on the fact that if we just scale the size of these systems up, like we make these neural networks bigger and we run the procedures that train them for longer, then the behavior will become better. So that seems a completely naive idea, but nevertheless, it's what it is. That's how the industry works these days. And on the fundamental level, we do not really understand why this scaling works, how to derive the corresponding scaling exponents that drive the behavior of these systems. Of course, scaling things up comes at the cost that this needs horrendous amount of energy, both in terms of the compute time and really the energy that it costs. And we do not understand theoretically what are the limitations, whether this can actually be done better or whether this is the best we can do. And it so happens that statistical mechanics was looking at the foundations and the behavior of learning from data with neural networks since decades. Statistical physics was one of the first disciplines that actually approached theoretically this area. And this, of course, continues today. So today we are asking questions about the current systems that use a bit different architectures, different training algorithms than what we used to study in statistical mechanics decades ago. So that's what I work on, and that's what my plenary talk will be about. Essentially, how we advance the understanding of current AI with the tools of statistical physics.
Okay, so thank you, Professor Zeborova, and I'm eager to hear you here in Florence next July. So,
Okay,
bye
looking
bye.
forward to that. Bye bye.